My name is Kendall Griffin, and the night my brother told me I had to start paying rent to keep my childhood bedroom was the night I finally understood exactly what I was worth to my family. Not as a daughter, not as a sister, but as labor. It happened on a Friday night, right in the middle of dinner. We were all sitting at the big oak table in my parents' dining room, the one my mom only brought out the good plates for, even though it was just the six of us. My dad was cutting his steak the same careful way he always did. My mom kept refilling glasses that were already full. My niece Oakley was coloring hearts and stars on a paper placemat. My nephew Colton was banging his spoon against his sippy cup like a drum. And my brother Devin was smiling. That smug, satisfied smile he always wore when he knew he had the upper hand. "If you want to keep living here," he said casually, like he was asking me to pass the salt, "you'll start paying rent. $900 a month, starting now." Shelby, his wife, nearly spat out her wine laughing. My mom didn't look at me. My dad didn't say a word. The room went quiet in a way that felt intentional, like everyone had already agreed on the outcome and was just waiting to see how I'd react. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I smiled. It was the first real smile I'd felt in years. I stood up, folded my napkin, and said calmly, "Thanks for the reminder." Then I walked down the hallway to my room. Behind me, I heard Devin scoff. "You're really walking out over rent?" I didn't answer, because the truth was, I wasn't walking out over money. I was walking out over 8 years of my life. 8 years earlier, I had been 23 years old, fresh out of college, working an entry-level accounting job downtown in Indianapolis. I still lived at home in Fishers, telling myself it was temporary, a smart financial move. I wanted to pay off my student loans, save up, start my life the right way. That was the week Oakley was born. I still remember the day Devin and Shelby brought her home from the hospital. The house smelled like disinfectant and baby powder. Everyone kept whispering, even though Oakley slept through all of it. My mom cried. My dad took photos. Devin looked terrified and proud at the same time. That night, after dinner, my parents sat me down at the kitchen table. They said they needed help. Devin had just started a new sales job with crazy hours. Shelby was recovering from a rough delivery. It would only be for a few weeks, they promised, just until everyone found their rhythm. I said yes, because I was the reliable one, because I didn't want to be selfish, because I thought it was temporary. A few weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. When Colton was born 4 years later, the arrangement didn't change. It doubled. I became the one who left work early to pick Oakley up from kindergarten, the one who stayed home when Colton had an ear infection, the one who canceled plans whenever Shelby needed a mental health night, the one who filled in when Devin had a last-minute work dinner. My schedule didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to them. And nobody ever asked if that was okay. I remember my 25th birthday like it was yesterday. I had finally worked up the courage to accept a date with a guy from the office. Someone kind, quiet, normal. We had reservations at a small Italian place on Mass Ave. He was supposed to pick me up at 7. At 6:30, Shelby called crying. Colton had a fever. She couldn't miss her yoga class because the instructor was subbing out the following week. My mom got on the phone right after. "Honey, family comes first," she said gently. You're so good with the kids. I canceled the date. The guy never asked me out again. 3 years later, I planned a weekend trip to Chicago with 2 college friends I hadn't seen in forever. Tickets booked, hotel paid for. The night before we were supposed to leave, Devin texted. He and Shelby had surprise concert tickets. They needed me to watch both kids overnight. When I said I already had plans, my mom looked at me like I'd slapped her. "Devin works so hard," she said. "He deserves a break." I canceled the trip. My friends stopped inviting me after that. The worst night came in February. I had a 102-degree fever. I was shaking under 3 blankets, barely able to stand. At 2 a.m, Shelby called because Colton wouldn't stop crying. Devin was out of town for work. My mom came into my room, handed me the car keys, and told me the daycare emergency contact was still listed as me anyway. So if they closed early the next day, I'd have to pick him up. I drove 25 minutes each way with the heater broken, picked Colton up, gave him medicine, sat on the bathroom floor until both our fevers broke. Nobody checked on me the next day. Whenever I tried to bring it up, the response was always the same. "You're the strong one. You don't have kids yet. Blood helps blood." They made it sound like I was lucky to be useful. Meanwhile, I paid for half the groceries, covered the streaming services, bought clothes when the kids outgrew everything overnight. Whatever was left went into a savings account that barely grew because something always came up. 8 years of that life. 8 years of being the built-in solution. So when Devin dropped his little rent bomb at dinner, something inside me finally clicked. For the first time in almost a decade, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. I packed fast, not because I was panicking, but because there wasn't much that was actually mine. That realization hit harder than anything Devin said at the table. I opened drawers and closets I'd been using for years and realized how much of my space had quietly turned into storage for other people's lives. Extra diapers, winter coats I bought, just in case. Craft supplies for Oakley's school projects. Shoes Colton had outgrown, but Shelby hadn't decided what to do with yet. My laptop. My external hard drive. A small jewelry box my mom gave me when I graduated college. 3 sketchbooks I hadn't touched in years. That was it. Everything else could stay. It took less than 10 minutes. When I walked back into the dining room with the duffel bag over my shoulder, conversation stopped mid-sentence. 5 pairs of eyes followed me, like they couldn't quite process what was happening. Oakley looked confused. Colton kept banging his spoon. Shelby's smile had disappeared completely. Devin let out a sharp laugh. "Come on, Kendall. Sit down. We're all adults here." I didn't answer. I opened the front door, stepped onto the porch, and closed it behind me without slamming it. The air felt colder than usual for early fall in Indiana, but it was clean, honest, like breathing for the first time in years. I threw the bag in the back seat, got in the car, and drove. 40 minutes later, I was checking into a Super 8 just off I-69 on the north side of Indianapolis. The clerk didn't ask questions. He handed me a key card without looking up from his phone. Room 221. It smelled like old cigarettes and cheap air freshener. I locked the door, leaned against it, and waited. For the guilt. For the fear. For the panic. Nothing came. I turned my phone off completely. Not silent, not do not disturb. Off. And for the first time since Oakley was born, I fell asleep before midnight. And no one woke me up. No crying baby, no pounding on the door, no frantic texts asking where something was. The next morning, sunlight came through the thin curtains, and I didn't know where I was for a moment. Then I remembered, and the feeling that rushed through me wasn't fear. It was relief so sharp it almost hurt. I stayed in that motel for 10 days. 10 days without explaining myself. 10 days without being reachable. 10 days without being useful. I slept until my body decided it was done sleeping. I took showers without anyone knocking. I ate when I was hungry, not when someone else needed to be fed. I didn't check my phone once. On the 10th day, I signed a lease. It was a tiny studio apartment in Broad Ripple, 450 square feet above a record store, exposed brick, one huge window facing the Monon Trail, and a fire escape that doubled as a balcony. It was the third place I looked at. The landlord glanced at my pay stubs, nodded, and said, "First and last month up front." I handed over the check without hesitation. For the first time in my life, I had an address that was only mine. Monday morning, I walked into work like nothing had changed. Same cubicle, same stained carpet by the printer, same morning stand-up meeting. Except, people noticed. Someone asked if I'd gotten a haircut. Another said my skin looked brighter. My team lead joked that I finally looked like I'd slept more than 4 hours. They were right. I kept my phone off the entire time. No buzzing, no emergencies, no requests disguised as favors. With the extra hours in my day, I started doing things I hadn't done in years. I wandered the Broad Ripple Farmers Market and bought fresh flowers just because they smelled good. I found a secondhand shop and bought a couch for $200 and mismatched lamps that somehow worked together. I painted one wall a pale sage green while blasting music at full volume. No one complained. No one asked me to turn it down. One night, I found my old sketch pad buried in a box. I sat on the floor and started drawing the view from my fire escape. The trail lights flickering on, runners passing by, the canal reflecting the last bit of sunset. My hand remembered before my mind did. By midnight, I had 3 finished sketches. I cooked real meals for one person. I bought good coffee beans. I read entire books in one sitting. For the first time since I was 23, I wasn't waiting for the next crisis. On the 11th day, I turned my phone back on. It vibrated so hard I almost dropped it. 187 missed calls, 432 text messages, 17 voicemails, all from the same 4 people. My mom's messages started with concern and ended with desperation. Shelby sent photos and videos of Colton crying, asking when I was coming back to read him his bedtime story. Devin's texts were short and angry. "You're selfish. You're destroying this family. You'll come crawling back." I read every single one without responding. When the phone finished charging, I typed 6 words and hit send. "I'm safe. Stop contacting me." Then I blocked every number. The silence that followed felt like power. 2 weeks after the night I walked out, Devin found me. I was coming back from the corner market with a bag of groceries when I saw his black SUV parked crooked across 2 spaces in front of my building. He was leaning against the driver's door with his arms crossed, staring at the entrance like he'd been there for a while, waiting. The second he saw me, his face shifted. Relief first, then anger, then something close to panic. He pushed himself off the car and started walking toward me like I was already late. I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I kept walking at the same pace. How the hell are you paying for this place? He demanded before I even reached the steps. I shifted the grocery bag to my other arm and looked him straight in the eye. That's not your concern anymore. He laughed, loud and forced, the kind of laugh meant to intimidate. A couple walking their dog slowed down, curious. Not my concern, he said. You disappear for 2 weeks, scare Mom half to death, leave Shelby alone with 2 kids, and now suddenly nothing's my concern? I took 1 step closer so the people on the sidewalk wouldn't hear every word. Move. Instead, he widened his stance. You're coming home, he said. Get in the car. I'm done asking. Something in me went very still. I set the grocery bag down on the bottom step. Slowly, carefully, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and opened the keypad. My thumb hovered over the call button. Devin's eyes flicked to the screen. You're serious? He scoffed. You think calling the cops is going to make you look less dramatic? I met his stare without blinking. Take 1 more step, I said quietly, and I finished the call. His jaw tightened. You really think you can survive out here on your own? He snapped. You've always needed us. You think you're strong now because you rented a shoebox apartment? I pressed the button halfway. The emergency tone started beeping, loud, unmistakable. Kendall, stop, he hissed. Leave, I said, or I finish the call. For the first time since I was a kid, Devin looked uncertain, not angry, not superior, cornered. A neighbor stepped out of the building behind me and slowed, clearly assessing the situation. Devin noticed the audience, and something in him deflated all at once. You're throwing your family away, he said, quieter now. You're going to regret this. I shook my head. No, I said. I already regret staying. That was the moment everything shifted. He stepped back, then another step. His hands lifted slightly, like I was the one holding the weapon. You're unbelievable, he muttered. Don't come crying when you need help. I won't, I said. That's the point. He got into his SUV, slammed the door hard enough to shake the frame, and peeled out of the parking lot without looking back. I stood there until his taillights disappeared. My heart was pounding, not from fear, but from adrenaline. The same rush I used to get right before a big presentation at work, the moment when everything clicks and you realize you're no longer asking for permission. I picked up my groceries, climbed the stairs, and locked the door behind me. For a long moment, I just stood there, listening. Nothing. The quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. Devin never showed up again, and without me, everything started to fall apart faster than I expected. The first nanny lasted 5 days. She was a college student who thought watching 2 kids would be easy money. By Wednesday, she was texting Shelby that Colton had bitten her twice, and Oakley refused to listen to anyone who wasn't me. On Friday, she quit without notice and blocked their numbers. The second nanny never even showed up, after reading the online reviews left by the first one. With no backup, Devin and Shelby tried to juggle everything themselves. The house spiraled into chaos. Dirty dishes stacked so high the sink disappeared. Laundry overflowed onto the hallway floor. Toys everywhere. Food ground into the carpet. They hired a professional cleaning service that charged $350 just to make the place livable again. The crew told them it was one of the worst houses they'd seen all year. Then, Devin's job cracked. The regional sales promotion he'd been bragging about required overnight travel and unpredictable hours. Without reliable childcare, he couldn't meet the requirements. His boss sent a polite email withdrawing the offer. The promotion went to someone else. Shelby hit her breaking point the same week. She packed 2 suitcases, took the kids to her parents' house in Carmel, and told Devin she was filing for separation. She said she never signed up to be a single parent while he chased a job that no longer existed. The last I heard, Devin was sleeping on the couch. 2 months to the day after I walked out, a new number appeared on my phone. "Kendall," the text read. "I lost the promotion. Shelby's filing for divorce. I'm sorry. Please come home." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed 8 words. "I stopped being your solution years ago." And I blocked a number. I expected to feel sad after that last message. I expected regret to creep in late at night, or guilt to ambush me in the grocery store aisle when I passed families shopping together. I expected loneliness. What I didn't expect was how quickly my nervous system calmed down. Once Devin was gone for good, not physically, but emotionally, my body stopped bracing for impact. I stopped flinching at notifications. I stopped replaying conversations in my head, trying to figure out what I could have said differently. There was nothing left to negotiate. My days settled into something simple and honest. I woke up early because I wanted to, not because someone needed me. I made coffee and watched the Monon Trail come alive. Runners, dog walkers, parents pushing strollers. People moving forward, not dragging someone else behind them. My savings account started growing for the first time in 8 years. Not because I suddenly made more money, but because nothing was leaking out anymore. No emergency target runs. No last minute, "Can you just cover this one thing?" No silent expectation that I'd fill the gap. At work, something shifted too. With the extra energy I had, I started speaking up in meetings. I stopped volunteering for everyone else's tasks just to keep the peace. I focused on my own projects. 3 months later, my manager pulled me aside and asked if I'd be interested in leading a new internal audit initiative. It came with a raise. I didn't hesitate. I signed up for an evening art class at the local community center, something I told myself for years I didn't have time for. The room smelled like paint and paper and quiet concentration. Nobody needed anything from me there. They only saw me. I started taking weekend trips again. Chicago, Louisville, just me, a backpack, and no return deadline negotiated around someone else's schedule. Sometimes, late at night, I thought about Oakley and Colton. I wondered if they missed me. Then I reminded myself of something important. Children miss consistency, not sacrifice. They didn't lose an aunt. They lost unpaid labor. And that wasn't my fault. One afternoon, months later, my mom sent a letter. Not a text, not a voicemail. A letter. She said she didn't understand my decision, but she was trying. She said the house was quieter now, harder. She said she hoped I was well. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. No response. Because closure doesn't always require conversation. Sometimes it just requires distance. I still live in the same small studio in Broad Ripple. I eat dinner on the fire escape when the weather is nice. I sketch the canal until the streetlights flicker on. I sleep through the night without interruptions. My life isn't loud. It's steady. And for the first time in my adult life, it's mine. Here's what I learned. and what I wish someone had told me sooner. Being needed is not the same as being loved. If the relationship only works when you're exhausted, silent, and accommodating, it isn't a relationship. It's a role. And you're allowed to quit roles that are slowly erasing you. Walking away doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. If you've ever been the one holding everything together, the fixer, the helper, the reliable one, know this: you are not selfish for choosing yourself. You're just done being invisible. And on the other side of that choice is a life that finally feels like home.